Mayor-elect, first time I'm talking to you, so first off, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And you made some news today.
Yes.
Okay, so Jessica Tisch has announced she is staying on as police commissioner, something you said all along you wanted to happen. Take me through the conversations leading up to that very moment. Was it an immediate yes? Was there some negotiations that went into this?
So these are conversations that we've been having actively since the election now, more than 2 weeks ago. Conversations between the commissioner and myself, between our teams, and they've always come back to a shared goal of delivering public safety for New Yorkers. And the reason that I said over the course of the campaign, especially in the final weeks of the general election, about why I wanted to retain Commissioner Tisch, it always came back to the outcomes. This is someone who came into an NYPD that the current mayor had stacked with corruption and incompetence at the upper echelons of it, and she started to root that out, started to deliver accountability, and amidst that, also delivered historic drops in crime across the 5 boroughs. And that's what we're looking to build on under the Mamdani administration.
And when she says she's agreed to stay on, just help me understand that. Is she staying on for the full term? Is this a transitional period? What's it looking like time-wise?
The decisions I've made with personnel, whether it be with the commissioner, whether it be my chief of staff, my first deputy mayor, these are people that I am choosing to be a part of my administration. I'm not choosing to do so with an end date in mind.
So, obviously the choice, I'm hearing you listen very carefully on what you're unified on, but there are some disagreements that have been widely reported on. You and I have discussed them many times, right? So I want to go through a couple of them.
Please.
She openly has said she wants more police officers, and there is this whole talk right now that there could be a mass resignation once you take office. Have you discussed the number of officers? I know you say you want to stay the same, but if you lose some and she wants to bring on more, are you open to that?
I've said time and again that the amount that we had budgeted through the course of this campaign, that's the amount that we need in New York City. And frankly, the issue that we're facing is not the question of how many more officers we'll hire, but as you've said, how many officers we'll be able to keep. Because through the course of this last year, we've seen that the NYPD has a retention crisis. And it's a crisis that when you ask rank and file officers, it has less to do with the question of who the mayor is and more to do with the amount of work they're being asked to do. These are officers who signed up to do the work of policing. And yet they're often being asked to do the work of the mental health crisis or the work of the homelessness crisis. I mean, in a year alone, the NYPD will respond to 200,000 mental health calls. And so that's why, in addition to retaining Commissioner Tisch and building out an NYPD that is delivering public safety in the manner that we've seen under her, we're also going to be creating a Department of Community Safety that will be tasked with the mental health crisis, tasked with homelessness, tasked with a lot of the things that right now officers are being asked to do, because you can't separate the fact that in 2020, the police response time was less than 11 minutes. Today, it's closer to 16 minutes. A lot of this is because of everything we're asking them to do.
So how do you retain the officers? If you're not going to increase the numbers, how do you retain them? Do you pay them more?
I think the key thing here is you make sure they have a quality of life where they can actually do the work we're asking them to do. That means that you have the Department of Community Safety taking on mental health crisis, taking on homelessness. When you talk to officers, especially around the question of forced overtime, what happens is you have an officer who's told they have a few days off. They plan with their family for that time, and at the last minute they're told, take the first day, keep the third day, but you're going to come back on the second day. Obviously that means that nothing can go forward as they'd hoped. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we're asking those officers to do the work that could be done elsewhere.
The police commissioner has also said that she wants the authority to discipline officers. You've said you want to pass that off now to the Civilian Complaint Review Board. What was that conversation with the police commissioner? Is she going to have final say for disciplinary action?
So when I've been speaking to the commissioner, but also when I've been speaking to New Yorkers, I speak about outcomes. And we talked about with the NYPD, safety and justice is what we have to deliver, but also accountability. And right now, what we see is that the CCRB has to deal with questions of petty politics and budget battles. In 2024, under this current mayor, the CCRB had to drop at least 700 cases due to a lack of funding. And so what I've said, whether it be to the commissioner or to the people of the city, is that I'm going to put an end to that by fully funding the CCRB so that no longer are we having to question whether we can follow through on a case because we don't have the requisite amount of money.
So who has the final say?
Under the city charter right now, that's the commissioner. The question is, can the CCRB even follow through on the complaints? I'm going to make it my job to follow through on that by fully funding the
But for the time being, she will have final say for disciplinary action until you figure out the funding issue.
Yes, that's within the city charter, and the funding issue has to do with whether the CCRB can actually take up the cases.
And I want to stay on the disagreements, just because I think it's so important, and you're going to get them. You get these questions. Public safety is huge.
And
so
actually,
many
even
New
before
Yorkers.
you go on, I'll just say disagreements are often cited as an issue within our politics, within our city hall, but I also think it's an example of the healthy kind of approach we have to delivering for New Yorkers. It's not to surround yourself with people who agree with you on every single thing. It's to surround yourself with people who are committed to excellence and outcomes.
Yeah, I think that people are going to look at it and say, well, how can you get to those positive outcomes of public safety if you disagree on things like the strategic response group? She wants to keep it, you want to get rid of it. Where did you land on that?
I continue to have my concerns around the strategic response group because there are concerns around the fact of whether we can ensure that we're not only protecting New Yorkers, but also New Yorkers' ability to exercise their First Amendment rights. And I see with the commissioner a shared belief in the importance of that exercise as well as being able to protect New Yorkers. And I think when you look at No Kings, the protest where we had tens of thousands of New Yorkers come out in the streets and voice their displeasure with the federal administration that has been going after them time and time again, we saw that that was not only an exercise of their First Amendment rights, but also something that they were able to do safely.
Yeah, this is fitting. While we talk about public safety, right? We hear the sirens going. So just to stay on that for a moment, the strategic response group, is it going away, or was that a negotiation that she wanted to keep it?
No, I've made clear my concerns. I don't think that the NYPD strategic response group should be how we respond to protests, and that's something that we'll be following through.
So it's going away?
We're going to have a different response, one that actually fulfills the objectives that we're talking about.
A lot can be said about how Eric Adams handled the NYPD, and Keishant Sewell was his first pick for police commissioner, and she left saying, well, I couldn't run the department how I wanted to. How do you plan to run the NYPD? Is it going to be fully her department? Are you hands-on approach? How did you leave that meeting and that agreement on who's going to run the day-to-day?
Frankly, the agreement and the meeting that I had with the commissioner is akin to the meetings and the agreements that I have with anyone that I'll be hiring, which is that I'm hiring to do their job. They should do their job. I should not be the one doing it. If that was the case, then I would simply be handling every single aspect of city business. And I'm also the mayor of this city. I'm responsible to the 8.5 million people. I'm accountable to them. And so I will be responsible in that way. I will be the one who has the final decision. And I'm also trusting the people that I hire to do their work.
So what did you leave? Did you give anything up from what you campaigned on to what she wanted? Was there something on the table that was negotiated upon to get her to stay?
I spoke to the commissioner about the fact that I am looking to keep her in this position because of the work that she has done, not because of the idea that I have of overhauling all of it. It's about building that together. This is a commissioner who's shown that she's interested in accountability, in taking on corruption, in reducing crime. Those are three things that I'm very much interested in fulfilling and building upon. And the things that I've spoken about during the campaign, as much as we talk about differences of opinion, there's also a real shared alignment. Both the commissioner and I have an agreement on the fact that the police should not be asked to handle the fact that our social safety net is coming apart at the seams. That is a responsibility for city government, because the more that we ask officers to do that, the less that we can ask them to focus on that which New Yorkers want police officers to be dealing with, which is violent crime and serious crime.
Yeah, just to go back to the police officer thing, if you do face this mass resignation, John Shell was just on this panel the other day talking about, well, there's going to be 4,000 who leave on day one. If that happens, are you willing to hire that 4,000 back immediately?
So I don't even need to engage in the hypothetical because I don't see that happening. And I think there's been a lot of that kind of rhetoric about what will happen if I were to win, what will happen if I were to become the mayor. We're already seeing in the last few weeks alone that so much of that is actually being backpedaled on, as we're seeing that people are not leaving, people are committed to the city.
The announcement is coming a day after Tom Homan said in an interview that ICE is going to be back in New York City, that agents are going to be conducting operations and raids. Did you talk to the police commissioner about that fact that she was tipped off to that one in Lower Manhattan a couple weeks ago? And if that were to happen again, if she were tipped off, how would you want her to respond?
Well, what I've shared with the commissioner, and I've also shared publicly, is the fact that we can never go back to the days where Eric Adams would go on national television and open the door to the NYPD handling civil immigration enforcement. That can never even be entertained. The other day, I was speaking with a New Yorker who broke into tears as she told me about her aunt, who had been visited by ICE at their home, at the school, at so many places of how she engaged with the world around her as a New Yorker. People are living in fear. And what we will ensure is the NYPD will be delivering public safety, not assisting ICE in their attempts to fulfill the administration's goal of creating the single largest deportation force in American history.
So if she is tipped off like she was, what do you want her to do?
I want her to ensure that no officers are assisting with the actions of ICE.
And what you did see play out a couple weeks ago, what is your response to Tom Homan, who yesterday said, we'll be back?
Yeah, I will tell Tom Homan what I will tell anyone who asks, which is the fact that I am looking forward to representing the entirety of this city. And this city is also an immigrant city. It's a city that's proud of its immigrants' heritage. It's proud of the fact that so many from across the world find their home in this city. And we will protect those New Yorkers as we protect every New Yorker.
You've really hit the ground running from the moment you won and to January 1st. It's a lot, right? To celebrate, but also take in the moment, and you're being pushed to have these meetings. One of them is with President Trump. I know you've said that you would like to meet with President Trump. How are those conversations going? Have you set a meeting up?
So we've reached out to set that meeting up. I don't have any more information on the dates or the time of it as yet, but I will be sure to share that as we do. And we reached out because we want to make the case for New Yorkers and the fact that I'm looking to represent each one of those New Yorkers, and frankly, their ability to afford this city, to be safe in this city. A lot of it has to do with how the federal government approaches this city.
One thing that you know about very quickly is that New Yorkers don't have patience, right? And they want to know, what are you going to accomplish on day one? And so you are not going to have a lot of time to prove some of the things that are going to need the time to get done, right? So just for a New Yorker's sake, that you ran on 3 big agendas. It sounds like universal childcare might be the first that gets done. Is that accurate? While you are firing on all cylinders, what's the first that might get accomplished?
Yeah, I think the first order of business will frankly be the Rent Guidelines Board and freezing the rent for more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants. That is something that happens on an annual basis here in New York City. The other two, as you referred to, is making buses fast and free and delivering universal childcare. And just this past week, I had a great meeting with the governor where we spoke about our shared focus on an affordability agenda and on universal childcare particularly. And this is something that will take a period of time. These are all promises that I intend to keep over the time that I am mayor. And I also know that what they have the potential to do is transform New Yorkers' ability to live in the city. I mean, parents have to spend $22,500 a year for a single child. That's less money. That's more money than they would spend if that kid went to CUNY 18 years later.
You mentioned the Rent Guidelines Board. Let me go there for a second, because Mayor Adams, who right now is abroad, has said
Is he coming back?
He has a couple hours left before the charter kicks in. It has been said that he wants to appoint people to the Rent Guidelines Board to kind of be a foil to that plan of freezing the rent. If he does go forward with that, with the appointments, how do you get around that to get what you need accomplished?
Well, I think the mayor will find that he'll have a tough time trying to stymie the momentum that we have as a campaign and as a movement, because more than 1 million New Yorkers came out to vote for our vision of making the city more affordable. I know that's difficult for the mayor because he ran an administration where for 4 years he made it more difficult for those New Yorkers to afford this city. And even one of the people that he floated appointing the Rent Guidelines Board is a star of a show that I think is called Selling New York, which is in some ways a description of what Eric Adams tried to do.
But if he does it, does that put a foil or at least a pause on freezing the rent?
I think it's an obstacle, but it's one that I think we can overcome.
And the other one, you're talking about fast and free buses and you're meeting with the governor. I've heard you talk about many times that you don't want to take money away from the MTA. You want to put money back in. It's something that she agrees with, right? We don't want to take away money from the MTA. How are you getting that money, the $700 million to make the buses free, into the MTA if she's not for raising taxes?
I think that the two clearest ways to raise that money is through the raising of the state's corporate tax to match that of New Jersey. I think that a lot of this is still a case to be made, whether it's the corporate tax or that's the personal income tax on those who make more than $1 million a year or more. I think that these are the clearest ways. I've also said that if there are other ways to raise this funding, the most important fact is that we fund it, not the question of how we do it, but that we do it.
Okay. But on the issue of raising the corporate tax, Stephen Fulop, the mayor of Jersey City, who is soon to be the head of the Partnership for New York, called it absolute suicide for New York City and an absolute dream for New Jersey. Have you spoken to Mr. Fulop?
I haven't spoken to Mr. Fulop, but I look forward to. And I've been in communication with the current leadership of the partnership, and I've appreciated the meetings that I've had. And I also appreciate and look forward to the meeting that I'll have with Mr. Fulop when he becomes the head of the partnership.
What do you think about what he said about the absolute suicide if you were to raise the corporate taxes, that corporations would leave?
I don't think that would be the case. I think what we'd see is that by raising the top corporate tax on corporations that do business here, as opposed to just ones that are headquartered here, we'd find that this would raise the funding to make this city more affordable, which would also make it easier for those corporations to attract the top talent, who right now they're having a struggle to do so because of how expensive the city is.
The meeting that you would like to have that you haven't been able to have yet because he's not here is with Mayor Adams. Now, I've heard you say that the transition team is doing well in communications with theirs, and you appreciate that. But he did jet set off to Israel and now Uzbekistan, and he seems to be goading you while he's over there and fear-mongering a bit. And one of the things he said was parents should be fearful of their children living in New York City under your administration. What are you going to talk about when you have that meeting with him?
I'm going to make very clear the things that we need to actually fulfill this transition, because no matter political differences, which clearly are many, there is also the need to ensure that New Yorkers know that on January 1st there will be a smooth transition over. because people do not live their lives in accordance with a political calendar. The things they need on December 31st are what they need on January 1st, whether we're talking about the streets being cleaned or, people being able to wake up and know that their city is the same as it was. That requires a smooth transition. That's what we're going to focus on.
As you've seen, your election has created a lot of buzz. Now that the midterms are underway, that seems to be the focus, but your name is still being dragged into the midterms, right? Let me talk about Hakeem Jeffries for a moment, who now may face a challenge from Ossé, who is a member of the DSA. You said that there are local issues that Mr. Ossé should be focused on, maybe should remain a councilman. Are you saying he should not run against Hakeem Jeffries?
No, I'm saying that I think the focus should be right here on New York City. I respect the work that Councilmember Ossé has done in the council.
But what does that mean? Should he not run?
I think that right now is not the time to be engaging in that kind of a primary. I think the focus should be on delivering on this affordability agenda.
And what do you make of your name kind of being pulled into this? For example, Dan Goldman versus Brad Lander, and whether or not that's going to be a thing with Alexa Aviles, who is a member of the DSA. Folks saying, well, Mr. Mamdani is going to support Mr. Lander. Does he have your support?
I haven't made any formal endorsements in any of these races. And I think, I had the other day someone reach out to me and say, I didn't know you were considering that person for a commissioner. And I was like, I didn't know I was either. There's a lot of things that I'll read in the newspaper, which will be news to me as well.
Yeah.
And I think what New Yorkers should know is that every day I wake up and I think about the affordability agenda. I think there will always be an attempt to make it a story about something else. But the most important thing is, can New Yorkers afford this city?
Do you see it as a moment for the DSA as a whole, as they now chart to challenge some of these institutionalized names? Do you see it as a moment?
I think the moment in this time right now for members of New York City DSA and New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs is the opportunity to fulfill the agenda that brought so many into politics, which is, how do we make life easier for working people? That's what has animated so many for so long. Now the difference is we have the opportunity to deliver on it.
And a couple rapid fire, because I know we're nearing the end here. I know you've been asked this a million times. Are you moving into Gracie Mansion? And when will you make the determination?
I have to make that decision with my wife, but as soon as we do, we will let you know.
If you don't, are you staying in that 1 bedroom?
That's probably where I would be if I didn't go, but we haven't made any decisions yet.
And then also for the swearing in, do you have any plans on where that's going to be and who's going to be there?
I have to be honest, I don't even know what I'm doing in the next 30 minutes. So I don't know.
I know what you're doing.
I don't know about the swearing in as yet.
And lastly, I got to get in a question, because this is big. I know you're a soccer fan.
Yes.
World Cup. I'm also a soccer fan. By the way, highest scorer in my county when I was a kid.
Oh my goodness.
In New Jersey, and not to brag.
High school?
No. Talking peewees. Okay, but for World Cup, are you going to go, and do you want the tickets to be affordable?
Yes, I want the tickets to be affordable, because I think what we're seeing is that for too many New Yorkers, their dream of seeing the World Cup means going to the closest screen that they can find, because they can't even think about affording the tickets. I saw a report recently, there are some stadiums that are charging around $150 for a parking ticket.
So how do you get around that?
I mean, this is the issue. I think I've been pushing FIFA for the fact that we should not only not have dynamic pricing, but we should also have set-asides at a discount for those who live in the area, which they've had in previous World Cups. But I love the World Cup. I look forward to the World Cup. I just want it to be something that New Yorkers can feel and enjoy.
Understood. Mr. Mamdani, appreciate your time.
Thank you, my friend.